Hey guys, how you doing? This is John here. Just going to be doing the first of many video series that I like to call it's going to be Video Brews. Now, basically, what that is I'm going to be doing deck tech videos without any of the bad resolution or just boring text files that you read through and stuff like that. I'd prefer to talk through it. I mean, it might be better to read, if you're at work or something like that, but I prefer to be just, a little interactive. So we're trying something new here, and we're hoping that it's going to work. So Theros is about to kick off, and we're going to have a bunch of sweet decks coming out for Standard. It's going to be a whole new format. Totally excited for everything that's going to be going on. But anyways, let's get to the first deck that I'm going to be talking about here. This is, as you can see, blue-white control for Standard. And basically, this deck is just a handful of gas. You just got, a bunch of the most powerful control cards in the format. Um, so let's go ahead and break it down a little bit by, specifics. So for the land base, we have, four Azorius Guildgate and four Hallowed Fountains, and a lot of basics. For those, we just want to be able to cast our spells because we have a lot of symbols in our spells, everything like that. 27 lands total because we have the three mutabolts. And basically, we just want to avoid Burning Earth being too much of a problem. I mean, in a perfect world, they cast Burning Earth and you have a Detention Sphere for it. Excuse me. But in most cases, you've already spent your Detention Spheres handling other cards and creatures that need to be handled, and or maybe just don't draw them, so on and so forth. So you need to be prepared for Burning Earth and not, just scoop to a Burning Earth just much like Jund does. Jund takes a lot of damage early on in the game, and then a Burning Earth comes down and they are just totally screwed. They have nothing unless they have like a Golgari Charm or something. But even then, they're shocking themselves to play it most of the time. So, so those are the land base. We have three Mutavaults because they're pretty good at early defense, and they're actually not terrible in the control mirror. You play this on turn 1, and then on turn 2 you can play a land and just start getting in. It's going to suck if they have an Azorius Charm or something, but most of the times they're not. And it's an uncounterable way to deal damage, which is pretty nice. So, you have the way around that. For control cards, we have 4 Azorius Charm. Just the best card, for control players at this time. Think Twice is gone, so you don't really have any way to draw cards in the early game. It's just very versatile. You can give everything lifelink, so your Aetherlink can deal some lifelinking damage, or you can just cycle in the early turns against the mirror, so on and so forth. The lifelink ability is not too relevant since Snapcaster and Restoration Angel are rotating, but it's still decent. But mostly you're just going to be using it to either cycle or put something on the top of the library, so that you set them back a lot. The tempo gain is massive and everything like that. So then we have Celestial Flare. Celestial Flare is a great card. I like it a lot, for the creature decks that attack with like a big dork. Um, or if you have multiple removal spells, you can like put one on top and then Celestial Flare them and so on and so forth. But mostly I like it because it's one of the few ways to deal with God cards. Um, I mean, unfortunately, obviously it can't hit a God card generally speaking because they're going to have multiple creatures in play to trigger the devotion. But hey, there might be some crazy wacky enchantment deck or something that tries to play, like Sphere of Safety or something, and then just attack with their large God creatures. But I doubt that that's the case. But Celestial Flare is just a well-rounded card, and everything like that. But speaking of the God cards, though, Essence Scatter is awesome, and I love having this in the main deck. Um, it's very powerful to get rid of things in the early game that you can't deal with. Let's say a red deck is just beating you down, and like they play something else that you just can't deal with. Like if you don't have a verdict, or it's like a ogre battle driver or something, whatever. I mean, it's any creature that you can't deal with, or any creature that you just want to counter. You have it, the main deck counter spells, which is great. These Augur of Bolas are supposed to be Omen Speakers. Now I don't really like Omen Speaker because he's not like Augur. Augur replaces itself and is a 1/3 body. Omen Speaker kind of just, I'm trying it out first, but Omen Speaker is supposed to just set up your next draws. He makes it a lot smoother, shall we say, for your draws in your deck. For example, like against mono red, if you ever open a opening hand that has like Aetherling and two Sphinx's Revelation and a bunch of lands, like do you mulligan that hand? Probably. If you have an Omen Speaker, though, you might not mulligan that because you can set up your next draws. So, like, if you see another Aetherling or another Sphinx's Revelation or something stupid that you just don't want, you can just put them on the bottom and then you filter out your draws. Omen Speaker, like, I would probably keep a 2-land hand on the draw or on the play if I had an Omen Speaker. Because you can just, simply draw into another land and, smooth out your draws. If you've got a bunch of powerful spells, you can just, play Omen Speaker, put 2 spells on the bottom and, hopefully hit some lands after that. There's no comparing it to Read the Bones at all, but it's still worth considering, and I'm going to be trying it out in the first, few weeks of Standard with this deck. In the 3-drop slot, we have Detention Sphere, which is pretty straightforward. You're just using this as a pseudo Oblivion Ring to get rid of any permanents that you can't deal with, namely opposing Jaces or creatures like Boros Reckoner, who are a pain in the butt to deal with, or just anything. These are the cards that kill the gods as well. So there's gods are going to be the most popular card, I believe. I feel like everyone's going to be trying to play them, and Perforos is by far the biggest one. Also, Elspeth is really, really, nasty. So trying to get rid of that is going to be, premium. You're going to want to be able to get rid of that card. Anyways, and then in the 4-drop slot, we have 4 Supreme Verdicts and 4 Jace. Supreme Verdict is, obviously the best Wrath in the format right now. You're just playing against a deck that has a lot of creatures, and you just want to reset them, kill everything, and just start taking back control of the game. So let them overextend in your Supreme Verdict and wipe everything away. Then we have Jace, Architect of Thought, which is probably the best Planeswalker for us right now. I'm considering also trying out an Elspeth. Don't know what happened. All right, so let's put that back in, even though I don't even have it. Anyways, so yeah, I feel like Elspeth is going to be a big player, in blue-white control decks, but I don't know if she's necessary. Her minus ability isn't going to hit a lot of things that you want it to hit, and it's not going to, hit anything that Supreme Verdict would want to hit. And I'm all for the tap out control lists and everything like that, and I might try it. I might try cutting something, I just don't know what I would cut. Because this curve is really nice. It's just a lot of 4-ofs that are just insanely powerful. Jace is an alternate win condition because you can just steal their best card with his -8, and he just draws you cards over and over and over again. So, um, it's just really really powerful. I might try cutting like a Jace, and maybe like a Revelation or something for a pair of Elspeths or something. Maybe even a Heliod. I saw Heliod and I think that he's pretty good. Um, but I'm not sure. This is just preliminary. We don't know anything about the format yet, what it's going to be like. So I'm just really, just trying this out for now. But this is just a broad idea of what you want to have. You can tweak it as much as you want, but this is what you should have, to start off with. Anyways, so the control finishers are going to be obviously your Aetherling. This is the best controlled, mirror, best control card finisher ever printed, in my opinion. It just, literally ends the game on the spot. This is almost like better than Psychotog. But, you just use this and you just take over the game. You resolve it. You can resolve it when you have, your syncopates to protect it and things like that. Or if you don't resolve one, you're bound to resolve another one. But yeah, if your opponent, obviously counters these 6 spells, then yeah, you probably lose. But that's pretty unlikely. But you stick an Aetherling and you're good. Anyways, other than that, to round out the deck, we have Syncopate. 3 Syncopate, just, normal counterspell. Want to be able to get rid of things that you can't deal with. Sire of Insanity might be big. Things like Underworld Cerberus I'm sure are going to see some play. Stormbreath Dragon, is really a nightmare for this deck because we have nothing that can kill it aside from like a Supreme Verdict. So if that card picks up in popularity, I might, up the count on Celestial Flares or Essence Scatters to, deal with it. But you can't charm it, you can't sphere it, you can wrap it, but that's, on your turn, and you've already taken 4 points of damage, which is generally what what they wanted to do to you anyways. But then we have Sphinx Revelation, obviously, which is just the best spell in the format right now. One of the best, I assume. It's very powerful. You're just drawing a bunch of cards. You just it speaks for itself. You draw a billion cards, and then you just have like this handful of gas, and they're just still sitting on fumes, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna cast this, and then I'm gonna cast one of these, and then oh yeah, I drew another Revelation too, so I'm just gonna cast that and draw 9 more cards and gain infinite life. So it's pretty straightforward. You just kill their stuff in the early game, and then let your large finishers take over. So I'm excited to try that, but let's move over to the sideboard now and see what we have here. For the sideboard, basically it's a bunch of narrow cards against certain matchups. Let's start and go from left to right. Archangel of Thune is basically for any deck that wants to try to slaughter games Aetherling or something like that, because then you just don't have a win condition aside from Jace, and you can like steal something. But that's just a long, grindy process, and it's gonna really be a problem. So Archangel basically comes in against those decks. It also comes in against any aggressive deck because the 3/4 lifelink is going to be really hard for them to deal with. They need to mortars it or something, or else they're just not getting past it. So Blind Obedience is pretty sweet. You might even bring it in against a control deck because you just like with your Azorius Charms, you cycle it and you extort them, and you can, I've actually extorted someone out of it. I've killed someone with extort triggers just on like Think Twice and stuff. It was an Esper mirror at States, and I brought in one Blind Obedience just because I needed a slot, and I actually extorted him out. I just cast, Azorius Charms to cycle, and I cast Think Twices, and just got in a little bit of damage with Restoration Angels and Snapcaster Mages and stuff, and I actually extorted him out and killed him. I doubt that that's going to be the case, but this is mostly for like Stormbreath Dragon and like any other decks that have like a bunch of hasty creatures like Mono Red, or any deck period that's going to be using Hammer of Purphoros. Blind Obedience is insane against them, so it just totally shuts down that card completely. It makes it do nothing. So that's really good, and it's also a way to gain life because you have so many cheap spells that you just play Omen Speaker, Scry 2, Extort You, I gain 1 life. It's negligible in some cases, but it adds up over time. So when you're casting, like a Verdict and Extort or whatever, you just keep getting that incremental advantage, gaining life to keep you alive because every point counts. Let's face it. Celestial Flare is again just for those creatures that you can't deal with. Obzedat is going to be one of those. Just gives you an extra answer to Obzedat, so you can get rid of. You can charm it, but I mean, coming back next turn unless you have a counter spell. Drawing yard's not in this format anymore, so you're not going to be able to charm it to the top, mill you 3. So Celestial Flare is a way to deal with dragons. It's a way to deal with Obzedat. It's a way to deal with Blood Baron because Blood Baron is another one of those really hard to deal with cards. Just having that protection from white is a pain. So you want the Celestial Flares to be able to deal with certain things. Dispel is for the control matchups, the mirrors. You just countering their instant spells. They try to you know counter your Revelation for 9 at the end of their turn, and you just dispel it. So also can just counter their Revelations. If they try to fire it off, and lets you leave mana open for other things that you need, or whatever. It's also not bad, depending on what happens in the format, but it's not too terrible against like decks that want to run Rootborn defenses and things like that. So like if you need a Verdict and you're like, okay, I need to blow up the board, and there's like Rootborn defenses or Boros Charm, you can just dispel it. It's not terrible against Mono Red either because they have so many instant speed burn spells, and they can just try to burn you out with like Skull Cracks and things like that. I mean, it's really judgment call on that. I've never been a huge fan of Dispel, but it's not terrible. Anyways, like I said, with the control mirrors though, Dispel, Gainsay is another huge one. This is basically going to be like a catch-all against the control mirror because they're going to have, essence scatters. They're going to have omen speakers. They're going to have detention spheres. They're going to have Jace. They're going to have revelations. They're going to have aetherlings. They're going to have all kinds of different stuff that you need to counter, and it's all blue. So for just one in the blue, you're just literally leaving open mana leak mana, and you tap island, tap planes, counter your spell. and it's a hard counter too. So I mean, it just comes in and just destroys anything that they're trying to do. So negate is going to be for any of those decks, as well as the decks that are running things like Rakdos's Return, any scary spell that you just can't deal with. I mean, these counter spell suites are pretty straightforward. Um, I don't really need to go too in depth to explain them, but I guess the pithing needle is the one that I should probably explain the most. There's a lot of things that moving forward are going to be problematic. There's a lot of powerful planeswalkers and god cards and everything with activated abilities, and pithing needle kind of shuts them down. So like if you're playing against a blue black control mirror and they play an Erebos or something, sorry, you can't gain any more life or draw cards or whatever. Or if they're playing like the whip deck with Obsidian, just whip, and then all of a sudden they can't use their key mark card to get back all of their stuff like Ashen Riders and Obsidots and all that other stuff. So this just shuts down their entire strategy, makes it so that they can't do what they really want to do. I also foresee a little bit of Maze's End being a possibility in the new standard. There's not really too many fog effects that are rotating out, and it picked up Into the Wilds from M14, which is sweet because it just accelerates their combo and basically means it lets it so it basically lets you draw gas every turn. Unless you have two lands in a row on top of your deck, you flip the land over and you put it into play, and then you're probably drawing a spell next turn, or on that turn. So if you're putting lands into play off the top of your deck, you're going to draw a lot more spells, which means that you're going to have a lot more fog effects and a lot more gas to keep going, and it's going to accelerate your combo a lot faster. So Maze's End is probably something that you need to be prepared for. I don't see it making too much of a showing because, things like Perforos and those red decks, they can avoid it by just playing creatures, and, Skullcrack is still a card, and Fog prevents damage or whatever, so you can, like, just Skullcrack them and just kill them in one hit. So I don't see it being too popular, but this is kind of a catch-all against anything else as well. And then lastly, we have Ratchet Bomb. Ratchet Bombs are just, another Wrath effect against decks with tokens. If you look at Return to Ravnica block, Craig Weska won the tournament with basically white-green populate. It's just a bunch of tokens, just Call of the Conclave and everything like that. Vitugazi Guildmage, Scion of Vitugazi, so on and so forth, all this other stuff. And playing a lot of Block Constructed has given me a wide insight into, what kind of things are going to, be expected in the next standard season. So Ratchet Bomb is really great against them because you can just pay two and wipe out a bunch of stuff. Advent of the Worm gets killed, all that gets just absolutely destroyed by it. Alternatively, it's also, great against aggressive decks because you can play it on two instead of four. Some of the red decks can actually kill you before you can cast a Supreme Verdict. Because there is a card called Dynacharge, and you just play a bunch of, like, free guys with Burning Tree Emissary and, like, just a bunch of one drops. And you can, like, 14 them on turn three, and then, like, they can't play a verdict. Like, if you're on the play, you just, like, 14 them on turn three, and then they're just dead. I mean, what are they going to do? They can't do anything. So you can just die before you can cast Verdict. So, you want to have Ratchet Bomb, you can blow it for one to kill Founder Street Denizen, Rakdos Cackler, Legion Loyalist. You can blow it for two to kill Ash Zealot, Gorehouse Chainwalker, Firefish Striker, Burning Tree Emissary. You can blow it at three to kill Boros Reckoner. Whatever you want, you can just kill it with Ratchet Bomb. So it's really great against token decks and aggressive decks that have a low converted mana cost for everything. Also, it's not bad. Like, if they're not putting a lot of pressure on you, you can just Ratchet Bomb and just start ticking it up. Like, if they're playing big red and you saw, like, an aggressive start, and then, like, game two they keep, like, 5 lands, double dragon or something like that, you can just tick it up. Just keep going up until you hit 5 or whatever, and then you can just blow up whatever they have. So it's very versatile in that aspect. So, but anyways, yeah, I'm excited to move forward with the new standard season. I only need a few cards to complete this deck: Archangel, one Jace, and one Sphinx's Revelation. Um, and the four Omen Speakers are commons, I believe. Either commons or uncommons, but whatever. They're going to be cheap. They're going to be a few cents a piece on here. Archangel, Jace, and Sphinx's Revelation are arbitrarily, ridiculously expensive, but got to do what you got to do. But anyways, I'm really, really excited moving forward here with this deck, and I think that it'll do pretty well. Might make a few changes here and there, but this is going to be the first of a big series of video brews. So this is John, and I will be signing off for now, and I will talk to you guys later, and hope you enjoyed the video.